it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, kind of a boring last few days in the NHL, huh? Wow.
Yeah, especially if you're in the New York area.
Yeah, New York, Ottawa, Buffalo. I mean, I tweeted it the other day, even on Friday.
Maybe the new league office.
Yeah, you know, it's
New York, maybe they're busy today too.
I would think so. It felt almost like the days leading into and at the NHL trade deadline. It's just chaos across the league. Lots of chatter, lots of weird chatter, and we're going to get into all that with our guest today. You know him well, longtime columnist in Toronto, Steve Simmons, joining us here on the Eye Test. Oh, and he's with us already. There we go. We're not wasting any time, Pierre. We're getting right into it.
Oh,
how we doing, Mr. Simmons?
Doing just fine, guys. Happy to be with you.
Oh, Cy, good to see you. Jimmy, just so everybody knows, as good a hockey writer and baseball writer that Steve Simmons is, I don't think there's a writer in Canada that's better covering the CFL or even the major NFL than Steve Simmons. Just say that right now. You're an amazing football guy. I love it.
Coming from a former quarterback like yourself, I appreciate that.
There we go. There we go. Before we get into hockey, Steve, by the way, just, you know, obviously people know who you are, but just to kind of give some of the listeners and viewers a little background, how you got into sports journalism.
Well, I was in university, like most of us, looking to see what the future was and considering law school. And I got involved with the student newspaper in first year university. And the more I was involved in the student newspaper, the less I was interested in going to class and law school. And by about second year, I phoned home and told my dad, I'm going to be a journalist. And I heard dial tone on the phone.
I had that same experience.
I got a job out of university in Calgary in 1979. And the Calgary Flames moved from Atlanta 1 year later. And it changed my life, and it changed the life of Eric Tahachik, who was out there with me, and David Schultz, who was out there with me. We were all three young guys from Ontario living in Alberta with our first jobs. And, 45 years later, they're both retired, and I'm still banging away.
So, Steve, you talked about that in Calgary, and I was going to bring that up later in the show, but it's a perfect segue. The influence of people like, I don't know, Cliff Fletcher, the influence of people like, I don't know, Badger Bob Johnson on your career.
I'm going to add a few names to that list as well. David Poyle was the assistant general manager of the Flames. Ed Chenoweth ran junior hockey in Canada out of Calgary. He knew everybody in the game, and his son has been a coach in the NHL for maybe the last 20 years or so. And so Bob Johnson is in my head. Like, I can hear him every single day. I can picture the things he said. I bet you I quote him every third day. He was as Pierre well knows, he was an incredible man and an incredible hockey coach and an incredible teacher of life. And I think, to be honest, talking to my kids who are now adults, or talking to my wife, or talking to anyone, I quote Bob Johnson and my dad are probably the two people I quote more than anyone else in my life.
That's an amazing. So, Jimmy, that's why I asked Steve that, because I know what an impact Bob had in a lot of people in Calgary. I know what it meant to my life, whether it's Craig Patrick, Bob Johnson, Scotty Bowman. I hear them all in my head. Two of the three are still alive, but I agree with what Steve just said. Badger was an amazing mentor. He really was.
Well, we were talking just the other day because the Maple Leafs have had a lot of injuries this season, especially lately, and they brought up a lot of minor leaguers or fringe guys to take spots on their roster. And I can hear Bob in my head saying, I can take an AHL guy for about 3 days and make him an NHL player. But on the 4th and the 5th and the 6th day, you're going to find out whether he can play or not. and they used to go through, okay, call up a guy, send him back, call up a guy, send him back. And I remember he got the Flames signed a defenseman out of Ohio State University.
Jamie McCowan.
I wasn't going to say that yet. And And the deal was when they signed him that he was guaranteed to play the rest of the season in the NHL. And he wasn't ready to play. Mm-hmm. And he comes into Calgary, and poor Bob he's forced to play him. He's told, you're playing this guy. And he looks at us one day and he says, what am I going to do with this kid? He is clueless. And they just worked with this guy and worked with this guy and worked with this kid. And he had, a 12, 15-year NHL, a very good NHL career. Mm-hmm. And I think, Bob Johnson, what he did for the Jamie McCowans and the Al McGinnises and Gary Roberts and so many guys who wouldn't have been what they became if they didn't come across a teacher of both sport and life the way Bob Johnson taught.
How about that kid from Bemidji State, number 29, Joel Otto?
Another guy who really probably wouldn't have had an NHL career had he been with another team. And they just took players.
I love the fact he's here.
Bob was a phenomenal builder of the bottom half of a roster. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he didn't coach the top half as well as he coached the bottom half. Mm-hmm. But when it came to, I can go through, if I had a list right now from Joel Otto to Colin Patterson to guys who had long careers in the NHL who may not have played a game had they gone to another team.
Yeah.
And he couldn't figure out Kent Nilsson, who was the most talented guy on the Flames, but he sure was great with the guys who didn't have that much talent.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Steve, on the note of journalism and just, I guess I'll say journalism, Pierre and I were just having this discussion right before we came on, journalism / PR. Some strange times right now in the NHL, and I'll start in New York with everything that's gone on there, obviously with the Trouba situation, and then also the Tkachuk rumors, and then the Ottawa owner coming out and saying that this is soft tampering. It's what's going on right now. It's like we're in some kind of twilight zone or some weird period here. What's your take on all of this?
Well, it's always a certain weirdness with anything that starts with the name Dolan. And then you kind of go from there. If you go back to the summer, Larry Brooks of the New York Post was writing all kinds of stories about Trouba being traded. Mm-hmm. Now, Larry Brooks is a pretty good hockey writer. Not pretty good. He's damn good. Top of the rung hockey writer. Larry Brooks doesn't write they're dealing Trouba or they're looking to deal Trouba or they're going to deal Trouba if someone isn't telling him that they're going to do that.
Bingo.
So that comes from the GM, the assistant GM, the agent, could come from any one of a number of places. But a writer of that quality does not throw stuff against the wall. Mm-hmm. He has people telling him this is going on. And all summer long, he's writing about problems between Trouba and the Rangers. This is before any of this other stuff happened. Mm-hmm. And then they get fast forward to last week where they decided that this is it. They're going to trade him. And if they can't trade him, they're going to waive him and force him to go to another team. And they're playing hardball and they're being mean. They're doing all the things that, frankly, they're allowed to do under the rules. But somebody in the New York Rangers told somebody who told somebody who told somebody that they're going after Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators. Mm-hmm. It's a nice piece, by the way, Brady Tkachuk. He's number one, he's not available. Number two, Ottawa's not talking trade. Other than those two factors, which nobody in New York bothered to consider, they were going for the blockbuster that wasn't there. Mm-hmm. They wound up trading Trouba for some guy no one's ever heard of in the history of mankind, and basically giving him away so long as they picked up his salary.
Yep.
And so I don't know who the leak is in New York, but I can tell you this. When Glenn Sather was there, and Glenn Sather was a leaky guy when he was in Edmonton. Like, he was happy to tell you, not so much me, other people's stuff. Mm-hmm. And he was known for spilling the beans. Mm-hmm. He got to New York. You couldn't call his phone without him saying, I need to get permission to talk to you. That's how the Rangers are corporate. Mm. So what's weird about this is this corporate tight ship suddenly full of leaks. Mm-hmm. Where are they coming from? Who are they coming from? Is it the GM? Is it the assistant GM? Is it the assistant to the assistant GM? Who is it coming from? We do know it's coming from because Larry Brooks doesn't write these kind of stories unless someone's telling him that this is happening.
For sure.
I agree.
Pierre?
I agree. Hey, Cy, what about your Toronto? I know they're not your Toronto Maple Leafs, But I've been really impressed, and I don't even worry about this last little 2-game slide. I think this team's way different than any team I've seen in Toronto since Pat Quinn was coaching with those
Well,
good teams. So I'd like to hear what you think of the Leafs.
well, it's funny how we agree on this one, Pierre, and I'm not sure it's too early in the season for me to be agreeing on anything. But I've been watching the Leafs since 1987, and I don't think they've ever had a team that was good enough to win, but they had teams that were good enough to get there. What I'm seeing right now is a team that might be good enough to win in an NHL without a great team. And so I think Brad Treliving has done some really nice, small and bigger things in putting this roster together as the general manager. He inherited a bit of a challenge with salary cap issues and the 4 guys making $40 million and all that. But the move he made in the summer, the signing of Chris Tanev, Chris Tanev's one of these guys, I don't think, if you don't watch him every single day and you don't appreciate how it is he plays, throw statistics out. If he's got no goals and 1 assist, this guy is a player. He understands how to play defense. He understands where to be on the ice. He doesn't get scored upon. And how much, and he plays against the best players on the other team. So what can be better than having essentially a shutdown defenseman for a team that's never had a shutdown defenseman? And so they have that right now. They tried to put him with Morgan Rielly, who's really hard to play with because Morgan Rielly is clueless from the blue line back. And so he doesn't know where to be and where to go. And so they were confused. But Tanev has been with Jake McCabe, who's now hurt. Since they've been together, they've only been scored on 4 times in what's essentially 20 games. That's crazy numbers. I looked around to Cale Makar and Victor Hedman and McAvoy and all the best defensemen in the NHL. Everybody's getting scored on 10, 11, 12, 15. They're all way more. Chris Tanev is one of these treasures that you don't notice if he's not on your team and you're not watching his 24 minutes every night of how good a player he is and how smart a player he is. And I remember Chris Chelios in his later years where he kind of slowed down and didn't skate a lot. Didn't get a lot of points, but he was always solid for whatever team he was on. And I'm not going to make the Chris Chelios comparison between these guys because I don't think Tanev's a Hall of Famer, but I think he plays that same smart style of game where he just intrinsically understands how to play defense. And I think defense is the most thinking position on the ice. And he plays it extraordinarily well. And he's elevated. So he's made that team better. Their goaltending has made them better. They've got 2 really solid goalies right now. And I say right now because it's December and this is the first year either is an NHL starter. And so, Anthony Stolarz, who was on the Florida Panthers last year, and Joseph Wall, who's been hurt almost half of his career, are now playing, and they both look like they are good to solid, above average NHL goalies. So now their goaltending is better, and their defense is better, and they've always had those sort of superstar guys who fall apart come playoff time. Well, now if they can sort of extend the rest of the roster, bring back Max Pacioretty healthy, they have to add a center, I think, between now and March.
I agree.
But I think the rest of the team could be the kind of team that's built to be a playoff team. And I haven't said that before.
No, Steve and I agree on this. The one thing I'd say, what I think Treliving did, Steve, you tell me if you agree, he knew Tanev from Calgary. He went and got him from Vancouver. And he also knew Oliver Ekman-Larsson from Arizona. So when you're bringing in players you're familiar with, it changes the whole dynamic of the acquisition because you're the expert on the player. You know more about the player than the team that might be giving them up. Well, and I think that's where Brad was really smart, Steve. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think that's where he was really smart on these 2 acquisitions.
The greatest trade in Maple Leaf history was made by Cliff Fletcher in bringing Doug Gilmour from Calgary. 5 for 5. And of the 5 players, he had them all when he was the GM in Calgary. So he knew every player he was bringing in, much as what you say right now. And again, bringing in Tanev, bringing in Oliver Ekman-Larsson, those are nice moves. And I like to call people I know when the Leafs sign a player or sign someone that I'm not as familiar with as if I'd covered them.
Mhm.
And when they signed Chris Tanev, I called coaches in Dallas, and I said, "Tell me about this guy." And they were like so sad that he was leaving. Like they were just. And the first thing one of the coaches said is, "Do you know we were 15-4 in the 19 games he was here after the deadline?"
Yeah, wow. when he got hurt in the playoffs, they crashed and burned. Exactly right. You're exactly right.
He was 15-4 regular season, and so that's the kind of guy he at this stage of his career. He's 34, so he's 34 years old and probably playing the best hockey of his life. And again, he just understands how to make teams better. If Austin Matthews ever gets back to scoring sort of as he can, Mitch Marner's played fabulous, and William Nylander's played very well, and John Tavares, who looks to me every year that he's finished, still contributes, and so that they're getting a fair bit out of their big four. Now they got to middle out the roster a little bit because they've got some guys playing that just shouldn't be playing at this stage.
Yeah.
How much, Steve, in your opinion, how much you mentioned Tavares there? Did the way he handled the situation with the captaincy and the seamless transition and the way he's almost stepped up and been even more of a leader since it was taken away from him, how much has that helped that atmosphere in that team?
I think it was a bit of a relief, actually, to John. Weird as that might sound. I think it's a relief because then now he doesn't have to come out and talk and answer every question and be the captain and be the guy that does everything, all the little things that captains do. He's still part of the leadership group, so that hasn't changed in any way at all. I think John Tavares is a pro's pro.
Mm-hmm.
Every year you think he's going to get worse. Every year I think he's going to get older. And he just seems to get out there and get himself working hard. He's not the greatest skater in the world. He's not the strongest player in the world. He just seems to get it done, and I have a certain regard for him as a professional. In that, I think that if you tell John Tavares he can't, it's like that's like fodder for him. He takes that and he takes it personally.
Yep.
And he's not like his contract's up this year at the end of the year, and the question now is will they retain him and at what price? And people have estimated anywhere from $3 million a year to $7 million a year. It's like people throwing out different numbers. But I think in his case, he's just one of these guys who performs to or beyond the expectation that you might have for him. And every time they try and replace him, they find they don't have anybody that's better.
Yep.
Buffalo as well or better than any Canadian-based writer. What the heck is going on with the Sabres?
I think it's all about palm trees. I've been looking at Wegmans and some of the other stores in Buffalo and at the Anchor Bar, and I can't find the damn palm trees anywhere. What an absolute sad display. But I mean, I kind of like Kevyn Adams in a weird way, but that was one of the weakest general manager appearances I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The whole thing about Buffalo's not a destination, and well, damn it, make it a destination. Win a few games.
Exactly.
Get in the playoffs. Yeah. Here's the thing. This is one of the things that drives me nuts, guys. And you hear it in the NHL and no other league. Oh, it's no fair. They don't pay taxes in Florida. They don't pay taxes in Texas. Well, guess what? The two biggest signings in the history of professional sport have happened in the last 2 years. A player signed in the state of New York and a player signed in the state of California, two of the worst tax states in America. Did they go to the Texas Rangers? No. Did they go to the Florida Marlins? No. They weren't even in the bidding. Like, it's such, I hate it. I go crazy when I hear that whine from GMs in the NHL. Oh, we have to pay taxes. Frick, everybody's got to pay taxes. Yeah. You want to play? You know what? Detroit was a destination when Steve Yzerman and Brendan Shanahan played there, and Nick Lipscomb was on defense, and they were winning stuff. That's where Brett Hull wanted to go, and Robitaille wanted to
Daniel
go.
Alfredson, and they didn't win the cup, but you're 100%. He's right.
It was a destination.
Yep.
Does anybody want to go to Detroit now? No, they got no palm trees and bad taxes. They got a lousy hockey team with no hope for the future. That's the way I look at it. And the Sabres, I thought, had hope because they've got two what I thought were possibly special defensemen. And they have a couple of guys up front that should be close to special players. So I always think if you have two really good defensemen and each are playing on different lines and there's 45 to 50 minutes a game taken care of, you should be okay.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I don't like the coach hiring they made, frankly. I thought it was a stupid Back to the Future kind of move. When there's so many more qualified guys out there now than Lindy Ruff. Or more modern, maybe is a better way of putting it.
And the other two guys, I mean, okay, maybe you're going to have, who knows, maybe he's right a little and you can't sign a guy, but you can trade for players. Last I checked, and last I checked, these no movement clauses don't mean anything anymore. So, why not go that route if you're having trouble? That circumvents the tax issue.
Look at the NHL right now. There's a guy named Reinhardt in Florida. You know where he was drafted by?
Buffalo, second overall.
There's two other guys. There's
Eichel in Vegas.
Yes, there's three very high quality players that are not on the Sabres, and the players that they replaced them with are not of equal value. So, you can only blame so much of other people. You have to look inside. But again, they've got the big Swede on defense. They've got Owen Power. They got pieces you can build around Tage Thompson and Tuck. And, they got some guys there that are pretty good. Yeah. Why they're so terrible and why they have, Ottawa and Montreal and Detroit and Buffalo, they're all kind of the same. They're all this, we're hoping this year will be better. Guys, hope doesn't win you a lot of anything in sports. You've got to be proactive. You've got to find ways. And I'll go back. Pierre mentioned Bob Johnson off the top. The Flames were a wayward team out of Atlanta. They came out of Atlanta. They were so not ready to play in Canada, so not ready to be exposed to sort of Canadian coverage. They were just a bunch of good time guys that were having fun in Atlanta. And then they came there and they didn't know what to do. And then they brought Bob Johnson in and it was like, they brought Doug Riseborough in at the same time from Montreal. And those two moves turned that franchise from lost in the wilderness to NHL contender for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
It's really well said, boy. That's so well said. I totally agree.
Hey, Steve, we'll let you go. We've kept you long enough. We appreciate your time. And
hold it. Stop right there for 1 second.
Yep.
We have a real good friend, Kevin Ball DuPont, that writes an amazing Sunday Notes column. I'm going to just tell everybody out there in the world, not just the hockey world, the sports world, there is no better Sunday column. There's no better Sunday column than the one written by Steve Simmons. And I'm just telling you, it's Simmons says, and it's spot on. It is really, you may not like everything he writes in there, but it is really good.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm as a huge fan of Kevin's Sunday Notes and of the old, years of the baseball notes in the Boston Globe.
Oh, Peter Gammons?
Peter Gammons and the people who followed.
Yeah. And then Lee Montville.
I wish I could come up with their names off the top of my head. One of them passed away a few years ago. And
Nick Cafardo.
Yeah. And just those guys, I've been eating that stuff. I love notes columns. Sometimes I don't love writing them.
That's what got me into journalism, was those notes columns, man. I loved it. Yeah.
And for me, it was Dick Young at the beginning. Dick Young in the sporting news.
Yep.
There you go.
He wrote that. It was mostly baseball, and I just fell in love with that style. And then Joe Falls in Detroit did it. And when I got into the business, I thought, I'm going to do this or try and do it. And it's funny, one of the first people to talk to me was Joe Falls, who was with the from Detroit, who said, that's the best notes column I've ever seen. And I thought, coming from Joe, at that point, I could have just dropped dead and been happy with my life.
I would agree with the legendary Joe Falls. It's the best notes column that I read. It's not just hockey, it's everything. And it's really appropriate. It's really good. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, guys. Well, anytime I'm around, we don't go anywhere anymore. So anytime you need me, I'm around.
Well,
sounds good to us. We'd love it.
I'll be staying in touch with you, Si. Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right,
Steve.
be well, guys.
All right,
you.
Steve Simmons, join us here. He's one of the good
Yeah.
ones.
Oh, you know what?
A
Hey, look,
staple in journalism.
he's so good at hockey. He's really good at baseball. But I'm just telling you, you know how much I love football.
Yeah.
Like I never rehearsed that. He knew where I played and what I did, you know, in football. And like I didn't tell him to say that. He just knows. Si's amazing. Like his football coverage is elite. Like it's not just a CFL, it's the NFL too. He's so good. His hockey's insane. It's so
Well, I like the mix he does too, because you don't see much of that anymore, right? It's either in hockey or a baseball.
Yeah.
But he blends it and he makes it go seamless through the whole call.
No, it's really good. And I just admire his passion.
And the birthdays too. I like the birthdays.
Birthdays are good at the end. I gotta give him poop. I never gets my birthday in there in the summer.
He'll get it now.
There you
go. One thing I wanted to say too about Buffalo too, and I was reading our good friend who we've had on the podcast recently, Jeff Marek, Pierre, was writing his column today. Another thing that Buffalo needs to own up to too is rushing players. And he said, you know, kudos to them for finally not rushing a player into the pros and trying to fast forward the process. He loves how they've let Devin Levi, you know, go down to the minors and work on his game there instead of trying to do it up in the NHL. And I totally agree with him. I think that's been one of the main issues there is that they've rushed their young kids.
Yeah, well, we talked about that with Kevin Korchinski with Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
They make a coaching change. Kevin Korchinski's back in Chicago.
Yep.
Now, I know they're dealing with an injury to Seth Jones. I get it. And I know the new coach, Anders Sorensen, is probably really high on Korchinski because he coached him in the American League. But that's one of those where you say to the GM or the GM says to the coach, just
pump the brakes.
Tamp it down.
Well, let's see what they do if they get when they get healthy, if he goes back.
Yeah, we're going to see tonight. They play the New York Rangers. You don't think the Rangers are ticked off after what they pulled yesterday?
Jeez.
I talked to you this morning about this.
And you were updating me yesterday when I was with my daughter, Maddie, just talking to me about the defensive breakdown.
And I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Let's
the one thing I went back and watched some of Pierre and because of what you told me. And the one thing that stood out to me from what you told me was so accurate. You said, don't listen to anything you're seeing on Twitter, right? Because I'm not watching the game live, right? So I'm just seeing updates. And, everybody's pumping up Keandre Miller because he scored a goal. But, him and a lot of other defensemen and even forwards were just coughing the puck up like it was a hot potato. I mean, it was unreal, and people look at the goalie and they'll say it's on quick. He gave up, but I don't.
No,
that's defense.
That's why you get the Betway, because I'm sure we got a lot of people waiting.
So. Oh, we do for sure. All right, let's get there right now to our great friends at Betway. They've got a great deal going in the holiday season right now. If you go all the way with Betway, you get a free bet up to $200 if your bet loses. Scan the QR code right there in front of you on the screen or click the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. The offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer not available in Ontario. And of course, you must be 18 plus and play responsibly. And let's do the Murph Sick Pick of the Day.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
All right, Pierre, I'm doing one of your trio parlays here. So it's 3 games in the NHL
today. 3 games today.
3 games. We'll give you a trio, okay? We've got the Chicago Blackhawks going into face, as Pierre mentioned, a ticked-off Rangers team at MSG, so back-to-back days in MSG for the Rangers. Excuse me. I'm going to go with the Rangers here on the puck line to bounce back. You can get that at plus 100, minus 1.5 at plus 100. We head over to Buffalo, the aforementioned Sabres, who are really, just in disarray right now. Well, they're playing another team that's had a lot of disarray around them. Some crazy rumors surrounding the Detroit Red Wings this weekend. We may get into that later. I'm going to pick the draw here. I'm sending this game to overtime. You can get that at plus 320. And then we'll head over to the Bell Center in Montreal, where I know, Pierre, you'll be recapping that with our good friend Tony Marinaro. Am I right tonight?
Yes, sir. Every Canadian game after the game. Yep.
All right. And they host the Anaheim Ducks and our good friend Craig Cronin. Give me another draw there. I like an overtime there game. You can get that at plus 330. So the Rangers minus 1.5, and then overtime with the Sabres and Wings, and overtime with the Canadians and Ducks for a parlay. Let's get to that Q&A. what do we got? Randy Workman. I can't believe that Georgiev got traded. What are the Sharks doing taking him on? All right. Pierre, you want to take this because we were talking about it just before we got on?
You go first.
Well, I want you. So I have a different aspect. I was thinking of the San Jose aspect, but I want you to explain what you were telling me about the Avs when you get to it. But as far as San Jose goes, I do think the one thing I look at Georgiev going there, he could be a fellow countryman mentor for their young prospect goalie there in the minors coming up. Yep. So maybe that helps there. But yeah, I understand looking at his stats. Why would you take on that salary and the way he's performing right now? But on the Avs side, I'll let you take it, Pierre.
Well, what people fail to mention is Wedgwood and Blackwood, the Wood brothers, so to speak. Mm-hmm. They were both drafted by New Jersey. They were part of that organization together, not for a long time, but for a little while. So there's a sense of familiarity there. They both played in the Ontario Hockey League. There's a sense of familiarity there. And I think Colorado realizes where they are cap-wise, that they probably want to have enough flexibility to make some moves down the road. And so they're probably going to do a 1A, 1B type situation rather than just go, this guy's our 1 or this guy's our 2. And, last night, if you watch Wedgwood play in New Jersey, he gets a 4-0 win. He made some real good saves at key times in that game.
He did.
So if they go 1A, 1B and both guys can play, they might be onto something. And I have a high amount of regard for a lot of goalies, but anytime you win a cup, and I saw Aiden Hill win a cup, I don't know if Aiden Hill's better than both those guys.
Yeah.
He's won the cup though, and they haven't. So I'll never take that away from Aiden Hill.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, what they do with that cap space too, that they got in the deal. All right. Next question. Ron LaRoque, what in your opinion, Jimmy, was the real reason the Rangers traded Trouba? Money? Yeah, I mean, I think obviously they relieved, they gained a ton of cap space there, and I think they just thought that they needed a change in the leadership core of that team. I mean, I just don't agree, as we stated last week, and we just stated again with Steve. I just don't agree with the way it was all handled. Look, they were within the law of the game to do it the way they did, and they didn't break any CBA rules. But it's the leaks, it's the public aspect of it, and the way that a captain, he's your captain. I just think there should have been a little more respect involved for the player. That's where I'll leave it at.
I was shocked when they named him captain. He came in a trade. They had other guys that were quote unquote Rangers. One of them being Chris Kreider. Yes. I know some people think the jury's out on whether Kreider's captain material or not. Here's what I know about Chris Kreider. I've known him since he played at Andover, which is an elite prep school in the United States. Knew him from the World Junior when he's part of a gold medal winning team, and he's a huge part of the infrastructure of that team. And I obviously knew him at Boston College, where he was on a national championship team and played a major role. It's not like he's a neophyte. No. I was shocked when he wasn't named captain of the Rangers. That's number one. Number two, if they weren't going to name him, I know he was never drafted by the Rangers, but Adam Fox never played for Calgary. He never played for Carolina, the two teams that owned him previously, but he only played for the Rangers.
And he wanted to be a Ranger.
Yeah, and he grew up in Long Island, but he grew up there as a Ranger fan. So it made no sense to me when they did that. I didn't have the ability to have this show with you, Jimmy, so I didn't have a chance to say anything publicly about it, but I was really shocked when they named him captain.
Well,
that's not a knock on him.
Yeah.
I was shocked by it. But then I think they realized there was something off internally with their group. But what never should have happened, and we're going to get into this more and more, I think, because there'll be more questions. The leaks in New York are unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Yeah, for sure. And, speaking of the captaincy, Pierre, I wonder now, because that's sort of something nobody's brought up yet. Who is the next captain? Who will get the C now in New York? Are they just going to leave it as, a trio of A's, of alternates? I don't know.
Well, Minnesota, I'll use the Minnesota Wild when Jacques Lemaire coached there. Yep. They would have a revolving C.
I remember
sometimes they never even had
Montreal did that for a bit, I think.
Yeah, they did. So, I don't know how they do it the rest of the season. I don't think you really need to worry about that the rest of the year. But going forward, they better make sure they do it the right way.
Yep. And I'm with you. I thought, back when he got it too, I was with you. And like you said, we didn't have this platform to discuss it, Pierre, but I would have put it right on Kreider. That would have been just instinct for me to do it. But next question. Alex Evanowski. I'm not someone who is just pro player because I like players more than management. Having said that, I think the way Drury handled Trouba was horrible. They seem to make him the fall guy. Agree? Yeah, him and Kreider as well when his name leaked out.
Zibanejad?
Zibanejad. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I'm not pro player or pro management or pro coach either. I just try to keep it right down the middle. But in this situation, I'm on the player side, and I would like to see management take a little more ownership of what's going on there in New York.
You got my reports yesterday. I've known Peter Laviolette since he was a player at Westfield State College in the mid 1980s. He was a really good player. Trust me, he was a really good player. I've seen him unbelievably successful as a coach, winning a Stanley Cup in 2006, going to the Stanley Cup final in 2017. I can go down the line, like all this stuff that he did, phenomenal, amazing. Jimmy, I'm really comfortable telling you that. When I was watching him on TV yesterday, I've never seen that. He just looked bewildered.
Yeah.
Even when they had the lead, he looked almost shocked.
Yeah.
There was like no energy, and it's not his fault. I think they've been so beaten up over the last 7 to 10 days that they're looking for answers now. And, they better have a big bounce back tonight against Chicago. The only good news for them is it's Monday night and there's Monday Night Football and the Jets are out of the playoffs and the Giants stink. And a big player went from the Yankees to the Mets. So they're not going to be on the front page of any newspaper.
That's a great point. I didn't even think of that.
But I can tell you, like, they better have a big bounce back tonight.
Pierre, when I don't have their schedule in front of me, but when you're in a situation like this and you just see it slipping away and you're, like you just said, you're beat up emotionally, mentally right now. How can you get that back mid-season?
Well, this is where Adam Fox, this is where Chris Kreider, this is where Zibanejad has to look in the mirror big time. To look in it, and then you got to hope for Will Cooley, youthful enthusiasm. I thought Filipino, by the way, played great for the Rangers yesterday. I thought he was really good for the Rangers yesterday. This is where you need guys, younger guys. Maybe they don't have letters, but you don't have to have a letter to lead. They got to bring enthusiasm. Here's a stat that I have for you, Jimmy. Tonight, there are 6 teams playing 3 games. The Detroit, Buffalo, Chicago, Anaheim, Montreal. 5 of the 6 are non-playoff teams. The 6th team, the Rangers, are in the last playoff position in the Eastern Conference. They're the only team playing tonight that is a plus goal differential. They're +6. Everybody else is a minus.
Wow.
They're the last Eastern Conference team in a wild card position. Okay? They have 29 points in 26 games. Okay? 25, let's just say it. 25 games is 50 points.
Yep.
If you win them all.
Yeah.
If you win them all. They've got 29 points in 26 games. They're way behind schedule.
Yes, for sure. And think of where they'd be without their goaltending too.
Yeah, again, you nailed that. You talked about that a long time ago with Shesterkin and also with Jonathan Quick. Quickie's been fine. He's not the issue there. And Shesterkin obviously just had a little baby girl. He and his wife. Congratulations to them. But yeah, no, goaltending's not the issue there. I think they overrated some guys internally too.
Yep. Pierre, I just looked at the schedule quick and we'll move on in a second. But from December 15th to the 20th, they're on a 3-game road trip. December 15th, they're at St. Louis. 2 days later, they're in Nashville. But then they've got a 2-day break, 2 days off until they play the Stars on Friday, December 20th.
In Dallas?
Yeah, in Dallas. If I'm the coach, I let the boys go out and blow some steam. That's what I do.
No, here's what I'll tell you, though. You're not wrong on that. I would agree with that. But here's something that's really important. This is probably the hardest time of the year to play at home.
Because of the holidays.
Because to play at home, it's better to be on the road than to be at home. Because you've got, when you're home, and I'm not a draconian or being, a knuckle dragger. I'm just telling you what the facts are.
Yeah.
Christmas presents, Christmas parties. If you're a young married couple and you got young children, it's way different. Christmas is different. Mm-hmm. I remember because I wasn't home at Christmas because of the World Junior. So we did our stuff way early. And my wife took care of the rest. And my late father and my mom, I'm so grateful. Everybody kind of stepped in because I was gone all the time. Mm-hmm. But this, if you're going to be on the road, this is the best time because all you're doing is playing hockey and maybe buying some presents. You're not worried about all the other ancillary stuff when you're home. So if I were the Rangers, I'd be having some fun and winning some hockey games.
There we go. All right, next question. Randy Workman. Everyone is saying Kadri is a perfect fit for the Leafs in a trade. I've been seeing that a lot everywhere. If I was a Leafs GM, I am not sure I want Kadri at the end of that contract. Am I wrong?
Do people remember he used to play there?
I know. I was laughing when I saw this is starting to pop up everywhere in the rumors mill, and I'm like, what?
Okay, you talked about it, and I'm going to give my partner full credit on this. You said before the season started, you thought Nazem Kadri would get traded out of Calgary, and you weren't being mean.
Nope.
You're just saying because of where they are in their organization's depth, he'll probably be moved for a younger and cheaper player. And I didn't dispute that. I agreed with you. Nas hasn't had a good year.
Mm-mm.
I'm sorry. And I don't know if it's because he's disinterested. I don't know if it's because he's maybe a little nicked up. He's not a huge guy. He plays with his heart on his sleeve, but he has not had a typical Nazem Kadri season. I don't believe.
No.
I don't know if you agree with me, Jimmy, but I don't.
I do agree with you, and I think Randy makes a good point on the contract too. That's an
well, that's why I'd be hesitant to want to do something unless Kadri's going to eat some of the money.
Yep, which they could. We'll see. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, Buffalo first. Detroit seems like a battle of anxiety tonight. That's a good one. I was trying to think of a name for it, but good one, Alex. I feel like the loser of tonight's game might have changes come the morning. That Adams press conference was not great. Agree? Oh, we definitely agree on the press conference. I don't know about the changes come tomorrow morning. Who knows? I'd have to look at their schedule because sometimes those things are very strategic. But yeah, it's both teams just something's got to give.
Detroit's 0-3-2 in their last 5, and Buffalo's 0-4-2 in their last 6. Okay, something's going to give. Yep. Somebody's winning tonight. Somebody's going to win.
Somebody's going to lose.
I just want to touch on what Alex said about the press conference because we talked about this.
Yeah.
It's easy to pick on somebody. I'm not just blaming Kevyn Adams on that. I think he went rogue on that press conference. I think he tried to outsmart everybody and be witty. What you learn a lot in this business, especially at the management and the coaching level, don't be a comedian and don't try to be witty. Just state the facts.
Yep.
And while maybe it's a fact they don't have palm trees and maybe it's a fact that they do have taxes, not relevant facts when it comes to building a hockey team.
Especially from a frustrated fan base.
100%. And it's
a lot of
one
money.
of the few, I can say this, and Jimmy, you know, we've known each other a long time. I've been telling you for a long time, one of the few fan bases in the National Hockey League where corporate dollars are not buying all the seats in the building. It's the fans, the hard-earned cash of the fans. Even when I coached against Buffalo, I always had a soft spot in my heart for the city and the team and the fans because they're real fans.
Yeah.
They're not sitting in corporate junket seats. Those people are buying those tickets. And I've always respected the area. Every time I've gone there, whether youth hockey, when I was playing, whatever it was, coaching, I always try to support the local restaurants and bars and all the local stuff. When I go there in the summer, I always go to the same place and try to support the people there because I really respect what they're about. They're industrious, hardworking, salt of the earth people. They didn't deserve that soundbite from Kevyn Adams. They did not. Nobody there did. Nobody did.
And, you know, I'm sure Kevyn probably in hindsight was looking at it and saying, I shouldn't have said that, but who knows?
So here's the question I'm going to ask. And Jimmy, I know you're my social media guy. You get all the stuff and you tell me what's relevant and not. Has anybody written or asked the question, what did you do to prepare for that press conference? Who did you talk to?
No. And I didn't know if I could bring that up here. I didn't know if that was just us talking, but I'm glad you did. It just seemed like you said in the beginning there, he went rogue. There seemed to be no structure and no theme. It was just, and we're saying this as Pierre. I don't know if you want to tell him, but I mean,
you can tell him.
Yeah, and I asked Pierre about that. This was one of the first things I asked Pierre when it happened. I said, do you think he went off do you think he just went away from whatever he told the PR people he was going to do? Like, was that rogue? And Pierre said, I don't know. But he said, every speech I've ever given, I'm practicing it in front of my wife or in front of the mirror or what have you, or in front of my kid. Like, you need to just go over it and go over it because and you're right, Pierre, you'll catch mistakes. oh, wait a minute. No, I don't want to say that. That's not going to go well if I say that. It didn't seem that was done. And no, Pierre, I haven't seen a lot of people say that. But I mean, in terms of the memes that are going around right now, he's getting murdered on social media.
So here's what I want to share this, because sometimes one of the best parts about this forum that you created with the guys in Montreal, one of the best parts about it, Jimmy, we can take people inside maybe some places they've never been, whether it's a dressing room, between the benches, at ice level, in the press box, whatever, it doesn't matter. We can go there, and I'm not afraid to say certain things as long as we're not hurting anybody.
Right.
When I was coaching in Pittsburgh, Bob Johnson even learned this from Scotty Bowman. After games, we would sit down as a staff. What's the message we want out there? Is there a way we need to stimulate a player through the media? Is there a way we can intimidate maybe the opposition? How do we keep our team humble? What do we need to do to maybe work the referees in a different way? How do we make sure our guys don't lose focus going into maybe 3 games in 5 nights or 3 games in 4 days? So after every game, let's say Lemieux had a phenomenal game. Well, Mario had a great game. What about the guys who went and got the puck for Mario? Like, what about Bob Airy? What about Kevin Stevens? What about Brian Trotti's leadership? So there was always a distinct way we would react to games. And Bob learned that from Scotty. And Scotty learned that from Toe Blake. And Toe Blake learned that from Frank Selke. And I learned that from Bowman. And it's an important part of this thing.
Yeah, it's very important.
I'm going to bet money that nobody even presented that to Kevin.
Yep. I'm with you on that. I'm with you. And I like too how you've always pointed out to me, like Pierre and I will be watching coaches after a game, and Pierre can instantly tell, because you used to tell me that you would make sure you had a little, it might be just a couple minutes, but you got to have that cool down period to meet with the staff and say, this is what we're going to say. When you go out and you do that press conference, this is what you got to say. This is the unified message. And Pierre can always tell. He's like, they didn't do that. Like, right away.
Yeah. And I did it once where I went off script in Montreal, and we went on. I was lucky because we practiced the next day at 6 a.m. before we flew to Winnipeg. And we went on a real good winning streak. We won in Winnipeg, lost in overtime in Calgary, won in Vancouver, won in Edmonton. I could have lost the team that night. Like, I was hard, and I never did it again. But I learned from that. I learned a lot. And it's the first time I deviated from the Bowman method.
Yeah.
And I was just so darn mad. And that's where the decompression comes in, to your point.
Yeah. Pierre, you've even been teaching me to do it as a writer or as a broadcast. I mean, it applies to everything and anything in life, really. You got to take a step back first and breathe.
Yeah. The McGuire Murphy thing has a new thing. It was founded over in Ireland. No drama, Jimmy. No drama.
Just humor. All right.
Just
next
humor.
question.
That's all we want. We just want humor, no drama.
All right. What do we got? Randy Workman. There's nothing more that gets my blood boiling than a Toronto viewing room. Can they give those guys some glasses? Am I wrong? You said it, not me, Randy, but I get your frustration.
Randy, we have a real important guest from the league, and you can send your questions in on Thursday for Bill Daly. How's that?
Yes, but thank you for bringing that up. We do have a heck of it after Steve Simmons. Tomorrow we've got Hall of Famer Mark Recchi joining us here on the Eye Test, and then Thursday, as Pierre said, we will have the NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly, and on Friday,
this is an amazing guest.
Friday, we have arguably, I mean, I don't think it's an argument right now, but just to be fair, arguably the leading candidate for the Hobey Baker join us, and that is Ryan Leonard of Boston College, Washington Capitals prospect. So great week ahead. We might even have another great guest on Wednesday. I'm working on it, and I'll announce it tomorrow when I confirm it. But a lot of great guests this week here on the Eye Test. So stay tuned and join us for the rest of the week. But we've got more questions here before that. What do we got?
Let's go.
Ron LaRocque. Pierre, are you a little disappointed in Utah? Or do you think they are right where they're supposed to be?
You know what, Ron? At the beginning, I was kind of hoping they were going to go on a tear, and they got on a little tear. Then they kind of went backwards again. Now they've kind of got back to playing a little bit more responsibly. They're a work in progress. I think that's probably the best way to describe them. I do think there's more positive now than there was when they were in Arizona. over the last couple of years. And I think Andre Tourigny just got his 100th career win. Congratulations to him. I'm happy for him. Very nice man. Very nice man. I think a very good coach. But they're still a work in progress, I believe. So I don't think they're a playoff team, but I think they're going to continue to evolve and get better.
All right, next question.
Hey, Jimmy, by the way, the best – I should have said this because I liked Ron's question.
Mhm.
Michael Kesselring
Oh, yeah.
might be this year one of the most improved players in the NHL.
Yeah.
He's
and
a
not
New
enough people know about him.
England kid, went to Northeastern. I think he might be one of the most improved players in the league. He's a big defenseman, rangy defenseman, tough. He's producing some offense. He's doing a real good job out there.
Pierre, I had a question for you. Forgive me for not doing the research. I wanted to ask you, though, and I'll ask it here. The goalie they had last night, Sabres, is he related to Rob?
He is.
Son?
That I don't know.
Okay, but there is a connection. I
There's a
figured.
connection.
All right,
I'm
next
gonna
question.
say yeah. I'm gonna say yes, but
I'll look it up after the show.
Jackson's the boy, isn't
Yeah.
not the boy, the young man. He's a young man.
Showing my age that I remember Rob Starber. But all right, next question. Jason Logan. Hey, Jay. What do you guys think of Shane Wright's game lately? 7 goals, 4 assists, on fire.
I was listening to the game yesterday between the Rangers and Seattle, and Mike Johnson made a very good point on the broadcast talking about Shane Wright's skating has improved, and I completely agree. And it shows you that when players get into a hard-working professional environment, it will improve. Most guys will improve their skating, and Shane's acceleration has improved. The goal that he scored yesterday was because of acceleration. He won a race to the net and just, deflected a puck by Jonathan Quick. But yeah, no, he's playing better. I'd like to see more defensive consistency, but again, that's part of being a young player. He didn't have to do that in junior. He's going to have to do it now.
Yep, and he spent some time in EA. It helped him out a lot. Next question. Chris Blue Shirts. Hey, guys, the Rangers have to make 2 more moves, a top 4 defenseman, a top 6 forward with grit. Easier said than done, right? However, there is nothing a 6-game winning streak can't fix. Let's go Rangers. I like your ideas, Chris. I would hope that's what the management is thinking. I think, everybody's getting caught up in what went down and how it went down with Trouba being traded. But now the question is, and I'm glad you brought it up, how do they replace the grit that they lost trading him? How do they replace that? And the effect he has when he's on the ice, where he makes people think twice about what they're going to do.
So one of the grittier players in the Rangers is Ryan Lindgren.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure he's as gritty as he once was. And it's not because he's afraid.
It's because he's been hurt.
His body is ravaged. He's been injured a lot. And I'm not even sure he's playing at 100%. I have so much respect for that family and for that young man in particular. They need more guys like Keandre Miller. He's a big specimen. He's going to have to start getting more physical. Braden Snyder, and Chris Nolan. Braden Snyder last year was a player that everybody's like, wow, this guy's really good. A pick in the 2020 draft. He's just a kid and he's playing, in the NHL. Well, he's not playing the way he did a year ago. Something's going on there with all those guys, and they need them all. Even Adam Fox. Adam Fox doesn't have a goal this year.
I know.
He's a little less than a point-a-game player because he's getting a lot of assists, especially on the power play. But they need those guys to get going.
Yep.
And I don't know why, but I think they look soft yesterday. But I also think mentally and physically they're worn out because of everything that's gone on.
For sure. All right, next question. Chris Blue Shirts again. Also, guys, might be far-fetched, but Drury should call his pal Joe in Denver and inquire about Colton or Wood. Your thoughts? I think Joe would laugh and hang up the phone.
Yeah, okay. We'd all like to guess Ross Colton, especially the Rangers would, before the Devils get him because he's a New Jersey kid that went to Taft and played at University of Vermont. That's not happening. Miles Wood, he's already played in New Jersey. His dad was a superstar at Yale. Miles went to the Noble and Greenhouse School, went to Boston College. I'm not sure Joe's trading either one of those guys.
No.
So they both fit in really well there. They're eye test players. Both of them are eye test players. I love what Steve Simmons was saying about Tanev. Tanev's another doesn't have to get a goal, doesn't have to get assists. He's just a good player. Yeah, he is. The numbers don't matter in some guys.
Yeah.
They just don't matter. So the answer to Chris's stuff is great job identifying 2 players that would help the Rangers. I don't think Colorado's giving
Yeah.
those guys.
That's why he said far-fetched. And by the way, too, Pierre, you say eye test players. I thought that win by Colorado at New Jersey last night was an eye test win.
You know what? I'll tell you one thing. Toronto's playing in there tomorrow night. Okay. Toronto's coming off of 2 losses. Tight game with Washington. They lost on home ice. They go into Pittsburgh. They take 5 penalties on Saturday night. They lose that game. Pittsburgh goes 2 for 5 on the power play. It's a swing part of the game, Jimmy. But here's what I'd tell you. If I were Toronto's coaching staff, I'd look at all the goals. And one thing that was really apparent, slot area coverage from the Devils was no good. It was bad. It was atrocious. Defending around the house within 12 feet of both poles, the goalpost, was no good.
Yeah.
And if I'm Toronto, I'm working the net. I'm working the net area. I'm just saying, okay, boys, stop us.
Yep.
Stop it. You're not going to be able to. So Toronto's got to do 2 things tomorrow. The Devils have the number 1 power play in the league. They can't take more than 3 penalties. And Toronto's got to do a real good job taking advantage of weak slot area coverage.
Yep. I'm with you on that. And I think of that. I think it was Colton's goal when Dylan didn't pick him up there and he was just standing for it. Like they were just cycling.
And that was Miles Wood throwing
right?
Colton.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There you go. All right. Great stuff today. Thanks to everyone there for the questions. Obviously, our favorite part of the show. And thanks to Steve Simmons. He was great.
Side was great.
Call by you.
So much fun.
Great call by you. And thank you to Shane up in Montreal working the boards as always. And again, tomorrow we've got Mark Recchi. And Thursday we've got Bill Daly. And then Friday, Ryan Leonard. Wednesday to be determined. I will keep everyone posted on that. But
hey, Jimmy, the one thing, can you just, because it's important, because people need to know, Ryan Leonard is being taped on Thursday.
Yes. So there won't be a Q&A.
There won't be a Q&A. So here's my challenge, and especially to the people down in Washington that I know are unbelievably active on social media. If you want, it'll be the first time we've done this. Send questions in.
Oh, great idea,
Send
Pierre.
questions
I like
in.
that.
And because I think Ryan Leonard is going to be a superstar player for the Washington Capitals for years. I have so much respect for the way he plays. And, that was a heck. They got him in the 8th overall. Yeah, it was a heck of a pick.
Yep.
And the fact that he's still back in college is amazing to me. So I just would like the fans to be able to ask, because it's probably one of the few times I'll be able to talk to Ryan.
Exactly.
Until we get to Washington. So let's facilitate that, Jimmy.
I will.
So you have to get your questions in by probably Wednesday night or Thursday, because we're taping that Thursday
morning. We're recording at 10 a.m. on Thursday. So get them in by Wednesday night.
Yeah, get them by Wednesday night. And if you do, I promise we'll get them to him, and we'll do a whole segment on that.
I'll throw something up on Twitter, and then you can hit me up on DM on Twitter.
Okay.
At Murphy's Law.
Jimmy, explain that to those of us that are new. I don't know what that means.
They've got a DM means direct message, private message.
Okay.
So they can just send like an email to me via Twitter, basically.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing that.
Who knows? They may have changed the name of it, but the last I checked was DM. So there we go. Hey, listen, thanks everyone. Great show. We will talk to you tomorrow with Mark Recchi here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.